And there we go. So, formal starting now. Thank you very much for attending this evening's webinar. Today we will be going through the new EstimatorXpress 2018 update. We will be taking a look at the new Velux Windows workbook that has had much love and attention go into it. We will also be looking at some of the much requested features such as the provisional sums, the assumptions and omissions that will end up within our quotes. We'll also be looking at a few of the other bits and bobs here and mentioning the new fixes and tweaks to basically improve quality of life within the software. And as per the normal, at the end we'll be doing a quick Q&A session. So on to the software demonstration. As you may have noticed, opening up the software recently and having updated to the 2018 edition, the lovely new front menu. So all the features are there as before, software status and such, but the couple of little changes here I'm just going to mention first, in that the supports and updates will remain green and then amber and only change red at point of expiry instead of the month of, so not too much panicking, you're just going to have the amber there. So starting off, I'm going to go into my estimates and as per the norm, click New Estimate. Now for this, I'm just going to be doing a quick quote job for this. So I have some data and I can show you the new Velux window workbook. So job name for this one is going to be 2018 webinar, and job description, webinar. I'll even spell it right one day. Doesn't help that I've got a hypersensitive keyboard. Now, group of workbooks, quick quote import. For those of you who haven't got the quick quote already, it basically will bring in the workbooks that is used during the process after we've picked our template. I'm going to pick a quick chart here for a small extension and specification, extension specification. Customer details here, I'm just going to call this Mr. Right address 3 wrong road, AB2 4DF. There we go. That should be enough. Now copy those details to the site address and update that there. I'm doing this because today we actually are going to be going all the way through to the final quote at the end as well, so you can be looking at our assumptions. One of the other changes that has occurred within the update is an increase in the number of brick specifications available, up to, say, much more higher value bricks, but then they have also been ordered in a more logical sense. So instead of new items getting added on at the very end, the new items are added into their logical progression where you want to put them. So, things making sense. Who'd have thunk it? And one of the other updates that's come in recently, you will have it on the last of the 2017s as well, is the option to add in mini digger or manual labor as a mini specification. And there's been quite a few updates recently to any workbook that does use any form of, say, plant there. So you'll see those questions pop up in slab workbooks and such. I'm going to create the estimate. And for this, I'm just going to be picking a standard lean to single story extension. And for this, I'm just going to be bringing in just a the key workbooks for this, not too much else, just to keep it nice and tidy. Okay, so I'm not going to make too much in the way of changes to my template here. 3 meter protrusion, 6 meter width. That's fine and dandy. But coming down here, let's just hit complete on these. Good practice, keep things tidy. I'm going to come to my roof windows. Now, in here now, you will see that before we had the templated roof windows with a small smattering of Velux windows for you to choose from, but the workbook itself then can serve as a template for adding in your own roof windows, either from Velux or any other manufacturer. But as is the constant aim of the software, we're always looking to improve the way we do things, and taking inspiration from the picker menus that's available in some of the Crystal workbooks, we have created the new Velux roof window specifier. As you can see, there is a large range of windows to pick from, and you'll also see again filters down the side. I'm going to show you now what the filters allow us to do. So standard traditional center pivots and top hungs. So for the test extension I'm going to be doing on this one, I'm going to be using a center pivot in a moment, but of course top hungs need to be available if you are doing a living space in the loft conversion. We have opening control modes now as a choice selection, so these can be electric, so these are going to be, like say, wired into your mains for the rest of the house. Manual, so old school, open them up if you've got them in reach, or get a pole. And solar powered. So these ones are the nifty techie ones where they generate their own electricity well enough to power a motor to respond to remote control to open them up. So you can be nice and lazy, open them up from a distance, and also not have to worry about running electrics to them as well. Especially if you're putting this into an existing ceiling, you don't have to then worry about trying to run wires through joists, routing them in all sorts of odd directions to get to the window. Standard widths and heights to pick from. Of course, these lists will reduce once you pick one. Whatever option is remaining will appear. Colours, it'd be a miss not to have pine, white painted and white polyurethane. We have even more attendees. Fantastic. And of course, glazing type. So this is quite a wide list, this one. So we've got a standard safety glass, comfort, we have enhanced security, extra low energy, extra noise reduction, and opaque. So I can actually work backwards from this one, and if I was to pick enhanced security, I can see center pivot, and these are only available as a manual opening. If I was to clear that filter, I can see that my center pivot has binormal all three options to open that window. So in the research to produce this workbook, we've gone through and basically produced a compatibility chart in the background that allows us to see which window has which features available, and also what kits are available to that feature set. So if I was to say this is a manual window to a width of 780 to a width of 1178, so 1200, I can say this is going to be in a white polyurethane finish, and the glazing type for this one, nice standard window, is going to be a actually let's go for safety glass on this one. There we go. So it's filtered to our Velux MK06 center pivot manual opening window, white polyurethane with safety glazing. We have a cost in there, and also the features that have filtered through. On the next page, we will also see what flashing kits are available. Now there are some windows such as the MKO2s that have just say like the tile flashing and the slate flashing available to them, not the recessed, if memory serves me correctly. Whereas this window, a very common window, has all the different kits available to it. So we can pick for this one a standard window flashing that is slightly above the roof. Of course, if you're doing something fancy, you can always do the recessed. You also see there as well we have the slate and also plain tile flashing kits in there as well. We can include a insulation collar and the underfelt collar, and also a vapor barrier collar for this as well, if required on the internals. Another option, going back to the fitting a window to an existing building, where you have, say, I said about you want to use the solar powered one because you're not going to be running electrics through. You don't want to damage everything around it, just maybe the aperture that you're creating and making good to. On the external side of things, because you're going to be cutting a hole in the roof and it's not going to be part of an overall job, you may wish to include extra vapor barrier so that you can then make good and make sure that the water runoff on the felt, if it does get that far, does not run up behind the window. It has good runoff around the sides. Get that tucked up underneath the above lift and under the buttons, and you're good to go. Now, something that wasn't in there before, because it was always a to be defined, was blinds. Now, it seems like a small thing, but for many options, this could be a nice finishing touch, especially considering that something like a blind is not something that many people can pick up quite easily or even install themselves, because especially if the window is quite high. So it's something you can include on the quote, say, okay, this window, we've included blinds to match this. It could be a bedroom, so we've included blackout blinds for the Velux window. Just things to make you show that you have accounted for the scenarios and you've got the customer's needs in mind, as well as factoring in the costs for yourself in case the customer does request it. So we could say this is going to be a blackout blind, but as you can see, we've got blackout energies, duo blackouts, light dimming energy, pleated blinds, roller, and Venetian. So I've gone slightly out of EstimatorXpress building now and become more of an interior designer at this point, but you have those options to get in there. I'm going to go stick with a blackout blind on this one. We can say that the opening controlment is electric, manual, or solar panel powered again. I'm just going to say this one is going to be manual, and the color on this one is going to be dark purple, because everybody loves purple. It's a very royal color. It's going to be a grand room. Now, once we've selected that one, we can select the blind, and on the final page of the specifier, we can make changes to the costs. Now, the costs in there are indicative of what's on the market, what you'll be paying for them. But if you do have the opportunity to pay less, you can decrease the costs. If you want to charge a little bit more for the window, especially if you're living on the outer reaches or have less, more expensive in your area, you can increase the cost. Okay, bear 1 second. Just going to increase my questions box. Okay, so the questions that are coming through now, I will endeavour to answer those at the end for you. Okay, so stick around, bear with me. Sorry if you've got to keep looking at this, but I will get there. So, roof window, 379 each. Window flashing, £64. Insulation collar, 35. Underfelt collar, 24. Vapor barrier collar, 25, etc. Okay. Click finish. And then, because we've selected that window, we can then pick the window to go, say, a template for the dimensional side of things. to go with. So I'm going to say one of these, and I'm done. If I want to, go for it. Now, just to finish off showing this one, because this would be popping up in the workbook if you was doing it manually, and that would be using the edit dimensions there so you can tweak the heights and widths. Again, Windows is just an example one there, but we can make sure everything is matching as we're going to construct this. So we're back to the very much building side of things now. We're back to home turf. Reveals plastered, and primers and such, etc. So that there is the new Velux window specifier, a picker of our grand creation for your delectation and ease of use. Make things just that bit quicker for you when you've got customers requesting something that we didn't have before. So you, instead of having to hunt down those items, sizes, codes, we've gone to those links now and made sure that you've got them there within reach. Quickly now, I'm just going to drop in a couple of other items just so we've got something to estimate. Going to use the non-picker windows for the moment and go old school. I say old school, but we're doing this within quick quote, so it's very much old new school, retro new wave, something like that. Now, templated patio doors, that will do me fine. There we go, number of 1. Loading anything else there. No rooms, walling sundries, electrics. Oh, actually, one thing for the electrics. We can, if we go for electrical sockets, highlight another new added feature with 2018. Well, actually, I say 2018, it's going to rolling out in all the workbooks, so some of you with the late 2017 will also be getting this one, but of course you want 2018. So we have USB sockets. So front plates, but with USB plugs, because super useful. Saves having to have a charger socket everywhere. You can just plug a USB cable in, plug it into your directly into your phone, some USB powered lamps, and even your wireless charging as well. So you can just plonk your phone down and charge without having to worry about too much, apart from having a cable. Like I say, I picked an upstairs one, so I'll delete that one. Add worksheet and go with a downstairs one. There we go. I'm going to add in 2. You may hear that satisfying nice mechanical keyboard. Okay, fitting out. Should we add something in there? I should leave that for now. I think for the most part we are done here. So what we're going to do is just hit create quick quote. Run that through nice and quickly now. Hopefully my screen is nice and visible. If you can't see the screen very clearly, just please let me know, but I've got things scaled up a little bit here now, so it should all be nice and visible for everybody. Apologies for the wait. There we go, and we're done. Not going to view the lintels and cavity closers at this time. Actually, no, we will, because I do get these questions through every now and then from people, so I shall say yes, let's review these cavity closers. Straightforward enough. These are the cavity closers that have been selected through picking the items that I have within my quick quote and my openings. And if I were to be using anything other than a 100mm cavity, I could quite quickly pick cavity closers to match a 125 to 140mm wall, and it would automatically swap these items And for once in a while, I can actually point at the screen and you can see what I'm pointing at. Pick an appropriate material. Do a direct swap for the equivalent material of the appropriate cavity width. Same again for timber frame, but we're going to leave this standard 90 to 105mm cavity. So now that's done, we can take a little look at see what the Velux window workbook looks outside of Quick Quote. Going to pop in there now. So there's our two windows. We're going to go in window 1. Detailed name coming through for the item itself. And we're going to take a look at the view resources output, because this is a tech webinar and we like techie things. I see the item for that has already been populated with the lovely detailed name of the item we're adding in, so there is going to be zero confusion at point of material ordering or when it's appearing on a quote. Exactly what you've ordered there is listed, so no guessing games each time. Pop back out of there, click close, close again, complete workbook. So now we've gone through the Velux roof windows, we can move on to some of the other items that are new within EstimatorXpress 2018. But if you bear with me one moment, I'm just going to take a short 2-minute break, so some of you can say get abreast of this and I can take a quick drink. Back in a moment. Okay, back again now, fueled with coffee. And the next thing we're going to be taking a look at is the oft-requested provisional sums and assumptions and omissions. So these you will find on the summary page ribbon for the EstimatorXpress toolkit. So on here you will see that we have provisional sums and our assumptions and omissions. Now, when you're going through an estimate, there's going to be times when you're going through a workbook and going, I don't know what's on this plan. So instead of popping back to the summary page to open up your assumptions and omissions, saying I can only assume that the plan means this, or I have to omit this from my estimates because there is not enough information to quote for this, which is of customer's choice. You'll also find that if you go to the Tools and Options tab, you will see that the provisional sums and assumptions and omissions are there as well. So you can dart into them, populate them with some extra information as and when you need to. So you're not tied down to the single location. It's a bit more freeform for you to be able to get around with that one. Now, so what we're going to do is going to drop some data into those provisional sums, so we've got something to work with. Now I can go add provisional sum, and it gives me a type in box for me to type into. So for this one now, we could say that the provisional sum of first fix. I'll get it all right one day. First fix, electrics, build phase, electrician first fix, makes sense. And we could have that as a PC sum of, well, provisional sum, sorry. Let's say £500. So it's not going to be a subcontract quote, it's just a provisional sum we're adding in this time. We can add provisional sum, second fix, electrics. Shockingly, and I know I'm going way out on a limb here, but I'm going to put that in electrician second fix. It's got a feeling that might be right. And pop there in that 450. Other items you can be put in there as provisional sums. You know, heating, plumbing items, contingency for repair decorations. So where you're doing some work on an existing roof and you're adding said new fancy Velux window in, you can add in, say, and we could put this one in completion, or we could fit this one in possibly plastering, so it pops in there, and we've got £100 for filling cracks. Click OK on that one now, and again, any point you just pop back in there, add a provisional sum, and drop back out again. Same thing for the assumptions and omissions. So add an assumption. On this one, say we have beware buying gaming keyboards, especially ones with very short actuation, because they do not forgive you for typing wrong. We have assumed that the rafters are of sufficient quality to take the new window. Yeah, windows. There you go. So without actually having to, you know, strip the roof off, make holes elsewhere, you can only say you can make an assumption that the rafters can take the weight of the window, and we can note that down. There we go. You can add another assumption there that what can we add as an assumption? Let's say manual or solar powered options have been selected as to avoid cable routing. There we go. And an omission. Now, an example of an omission. We have omitted the costs of sanity. No, hang on. Sanitary. Bit mixed. We have omitted the cost of sanitary provisions. We can assume add assumption there as well. we assume that sanitary provisions are available on the site. There we go. At least you can tell I'm typing. Right. Not going to go too much there because otherwise you're just going to be watching me typing and making spelling mistakes all evening. But we have some information to work with now. So I'm going to click OK on that one. And what we can do now is go through to our report section. Ta-da! Now I'm going to go straight to my customer quotes and I'm do a quote by build phase. Once again, key resource specified. Let's just do everything for this one and just click print VAT and click OK. Normally I'd say we're doing any kind of a calculation process. Sometimes make yourself a cup of tea or coffee, but the quote's a nice and quick one, and my machine don't really give much time to wait. So what we can do now is zoom this in a little bit so we can see our lovely quotes. Now, of course, I don't have anything on here as yet because it's just a work edition. But let's run with the imagination that we have our lovely logo on the front there and our header imported. Moving down here, we have Mr. Wright, subject webinar. Thank you for your valued inquiry and instructions to the quote for the above project. So there we have our considerations. The estimate is valid for so-and-so. We look forward to hearing from you. Yours sincerely, and where you put your scribble. Now on to the new stuff. Please note we have allowed the following provisional sums within this estimate. First fix electrics, £500. Second fix electrics, £450. Repair provisions, £100. So directly as we typed them within the input boxes on the previous pages. So there's not going to be a markup on that one. They are as inputted. Okay. Now this is quite important because, say, many people have requested this. So when you're adding in certain items within workbooks previously, you didn't want them to be affected by VAT. Now you have that option to add those in. We do listen. Please note, we have made no allowance for the following items within this estimate. We have omitted the costs of sanitary provisions. Please note that the following assumptions have been made in order to prepare this estimate. We have assumed the rafters of sufficient quality to take the new windows. Manual solar powered options have been selected to avoid cable routing. We assume the sanitary provisions are available on site. Left it as sanity. And then continue on to our standard workbooks, but we will pop down, scrolling all the way down till we find our Velux items. So coming full circle now, back to our Velux, but now we see items added in for top and bottom trimmers, the window itself as described, the vapor barrier, insulation collar for this project. There we go. The new items within the 2018 update and how they work. I will do a quick run through of some of the things that we have also tweaked within the software as well before we get to our Q&A session. I'm not muting myself. So I've got a little cheat list here. I'm going to look at it, and one of the things I do see on my cheat list is there's a new main menu. Glad I read that one, but I skipped that otherwise. We say the quote enhancement, ability to enter assumptions and omissions, the Velux window, updates electrical sockets, new workbooks added to quick quote. There are some of the items that may have been missed before have been added in, such as the floor screed workbooks have been reworked so they work within quick quote properly now. They were previously turned off until they had the work done on them, so they wouldn't come through us with any issues. Would rather, if that something wasn't doing what it's supposed to, would leave it out of that, and you can still add it in manually into the estimate as per before. There is, say, the data on locations working without a character limit now, so you're not limited to having to just keep your name shorter on that. And of course, say, as always, general bug fixes, namely just making sure that we stay ahead of the curve of any updates to Office and Windows. We have, as mentioned, the increased number of mini-specs options for the brickwork, and the logical listing of that as well. Traffic lights, groups of workbooks. Now the groups of workbooks have been updated as well to include the new items. Now, some other items that have been updated as well is quote-based. So I'm going to pop back here and I'm going to show you some of the things that have happened. I'm going to go back to the summary. And I'm going to rename my lean-to roof, rename that Leany Roof. I'm going to pop back to my reports. I'm going to go to my customer quotes. Quote Wizard by build, actually not by build phase. Okay, Quote Wizard by workbook. Now, before, if you had a renamed workbook or something custom, you would have blank text for that workbook because there's nothing for that name within the database in the background. But some of the changes that have happened recently means that Leany Roof now uses the default text for lean-to roof. So if you are renaming workbooks, adding them in again, renaming, then you don't have to add in the text manually anymore. It would default to the text that would be appropriate for that workbook, thus saving time. Another little quality of life improvement. The other little things that you get from that as well is that when in your previewing text under the advanced options here, so looking at material, edit text, change that to 2, there we go. Previewing works properly now. The text is updated much quicker, so another little quality of life one that's come through. And generally that is the bulk of it. We continue the onward march to make sure that the software is always improving, and any suggestions or requests for things that you wish to be in the software or you feel would be a benefit to the software, those suggestions come through to us and we take them seriously and we act upon them. The provisional sums was something that was oft requested. So that there now, we've spent around about 45 minutes going through some of the new features there. And in a moment, after another quick minute break, we were doing a Q&A session. I've already can see a couple of questions have been lined up. So we'll get going with them in a moment. Okay, so back in a moment. I'm back. And questions. Now, thankfully, we've got a busy room tonight, lots of people in attendance, which means plenty of fuel for the fire. So let's get cracking. We have Velux window specifier comes up, the window catalog isn't loading. Now, that one there most likely means that you probably want to check if there's an update. It's going to be a repeated question. Answer that one. There should be a 908.1 available. If you can't get access to that one, I'll be able to see these questions tomorrow. So anyone with, say, a technical issue that I do know a solution to, or something that has had a definitive bug fix, then I will be able to email you tomorrow the direct links for any updates that are required. So don't worry, won't be able to do it tonight, as unfortunately not in the office, but tomorrow morning I'll get cracking with that for you. So let's have a look. Let's go back to the EstimatorXpress. We have scroll down to the total. Why does the total sum of VAT never line up in the margins? So I'm going to guess this is for this one. Is that what you were referring to, Chris? It may be due to the formatting of items. Some things come through as templated. Other items are basically on the document in the template in the background. So I can have a little look at that one tomorrow, see what the template, if they're lining up on the template. They seem to be massively out. Can't really. You've got me thinking about that one now. I'm gonna have a little look tomorrow, see what the lining up of that one is. So next one, suggestion, and that would be loft conversion in quick quotes. Now, we did almost have a lot of these items in quick quote ready for launch, but there is a lot of work in producing pre-templated workbooks. While it launched with new builds, garages, and a quality selection of extensions, things like the loft conversions and garage conversions, which is another oft requested one, are yet to come. They are being worked on. Now, to prioritize between the two, between garage conversions and loft conversions, we placed post-it notes on 2 badgers, unleashed them into a room with a jar of raspberries, and the one that ate the most got their workbooks made. In this case, it was loft conversions, so they are actually currently being worked on. I do know that should not be too far off. The ETA is the summer update for EstimatorXpress, so take that as you will, being that this is Britain and summers are erratic, but that should be coming along August, September way. Okay, so not too far off. For the meantime, you do have the custom build for those, but again, we hear you, and they are being worked on. K-Rend workbooks have been added. Another one that is actually in development. We actually have a few people developing things. So we have one actually doing the love conversions, and one of the guys that is our main researcher, effectively, has been going through. Now, when people use a certain type of render, they tend to use similar types of render or their favorite selection of renders. But when you start looking at this, you realize that even just one manufacturer has, I think it was 24, 25 variants of the same thing, with each one with a slightly different fitting. So they got smacked in the face with a spreadsheet of different options. So we're currently going through and working out how to include as many options in as small as a workbook selection as possible. Otherwise, you can almost do K-Rend as a trade edition. There are that many different variants in the background to work with. So we're currently working on that one. That is in development. It's going to be a bit further off that one because it's something that they want to get right, and they don't want to do a bloat of workbooks for that one. They just want to keep it straightforward and simple enough so that it's practical for everyday use within the software, but comprehensive enough that it does exactly what you need to do. I think for the most part, it's either going to be not so much eliminating manufacturers, but genericizing the systems, as it were. So where they're common, we can cost for that common system along those lines there. So we are doing that one. EstimatorXpress, how do you update to 2018? Now, if your software hasn't triggered yet to say that there is an update available, it's a bit of a rolling process, so that I think I've gone for this one before as an explanation on an older update. If we released 2018 to everyone all at once, we could have lots of inbound calls at once, especially if something went wrong or lots of people wanted to update it once, other such things. So to save people waiting, as we were working for everyone, we kind of must stagger it so people get the updates. Software won't say there's a new update available just yet on hitting the check for updates. That will trigger at some point. But if you do want the update and you want it ASAP, then you can either get it directly off the website with your builder ID and password, or you can give us a call or email. Email is greatly appreciated because then we can just through to the support at hpexcel.co.uk, because it files through to a group of us in the team, and we can get to you quite quickly, and you're not going to be trying to call you or you're up on a roof or something. So we can get that back to you. You can click the link and away you go. Retrofit cavity trays. Oh, I made that face, don't I? I don't think they are. We've got the standard cavity trays. I'm always looking for a way to just basically do chasing in lead as well, because that was actually a great deal of what tasks involved in the past. So it's not something that's there, but you can add in a task as cavity trays for building them in, but it might, for now, it'd be a case of factoring in additional labour and time for chasing out the existing brickwork for adding in those cavity trays and fitting them. So when fitting them, increase the labour factor for doing so to add for the difficulty. Hopefully you'll have either a truss set on site to follow, or timbers on site so you can mock up the apex or lean-to that you need to lead work in. Purchase software a couple months ago. How do I get the upgrades? Once again, you can pop along to the website with your builder ID and password. If you can't remember your builder ID, for everyone here, tools and options, about EstimatorXpress. It'll tell you your version, who's it's licensed to, your CD key. Don't ignore that. You ain't using that. It's mine. Builder ID, and if there's license code to go with it, license code, and also what version of Excel you're using as well. Now, again, you can just give us a call or just pop us an email as well, and we'll email you a direct link if you want sooner rather than later, because there are abilities in the software, say the check for updates, but it's not going to be triggered for everyone straight away. House and drive protection for rooms workbook. But I think that's something we can have a little look at. So, previous quote, yes, let's have a little look at that one. And we'll pop down to rooms. Now, I do believe house and drive protection is going to be under some of the additionals workbooks. So may not be under these directly because we're going to have stripping outs and such. Yes. Yeah, so I think it's going to be under the rooms there. You may have to just stick with workbooks and prelims and sundries. Yes. Yeah, so I don't think that one's made it across to the quick quote yet. So, as mentioned earlier on with the screening, if something hasn't been fully adapted for the quick quote yet, it will be left out until at such point it is compatible. So, while the rooms aren't there for the temporary house drive protection, it shall hopefully get there sooner rather than later. So, but say, I think because of its style, I don't know if it might be appropriate for rooms. I think it's kind of like how it kind of fits as something that's got direct measurements in it that can be imported into these items here. Otherwise, you might have to kind of pop the figures in yourself, really, on top of that anyway. Yeah, I'm not sure if that might be something that might end up across in the rooms. I'll have to have a little look in that one, but yeah, I'm not sure if that will be something that's going to be added to the rooms. Just the way the workbook works, on say like how many rolls of something you're going to need doesn't quite translate, because you might say I need a roll here for that hallway, 2 rolls for the stairs and landing and so forth, and things like say stair protectors, handrail protectors and such. So I'll ask about that one, but I don't hold much hope for that one. The next scope coming up on this one? Right, scope. Anyway, yes, so I think that's the state of that one. Don't think it's going to be popping up on rooms. More questions. There's still quite a few of you walking about out there, so if you've got any more questions for me, please pop them over. While you're doing that, I'm going to just have a quick drink. One moment. Alright, okay. Close didn't disappoint. Is there provision for costing a megaflow unvented hot water system? Ooh, what we got in our workbooks? Megaflow. Have we got any other? Valent. Megaflow. There we go. So yeah, so that would be gas system boilers. Warm flow. Well, but that were the ones you're looking for, the megaflows? I'm just going to pick a random one out. Right, so we've got our megaflow. Got a Baxi boiler. So it's just these ones that we've got a list of. So we've got the boiler itself. The rest of the system will be encountered, well, costed for with the other plumbing workbooks, pipe work, and such there. So I haven't got a reply yet, so I'm going to only be able to go as far as showing you the workbooks we've got for that one. Right. So I'm going to go from there. I'm going to pop back to my job summary and go to will material deposit be added to stage payment generator, as this is something we always request in our terms and conditions. Bear with me one moment. Camera invasion. Right. I've had some conversations about this one, customers and those in dev, about being able to push material costs forward for deposits. Right, I'm going to pop into my reports. Do my stage payments. You can kind of push payments forward by setting a lot of these items, so initial things such as all the oversight and slabbing, to be quoted for early on, or completion of phase. If there's one to actually work with, if I had a prelims phase in there, I can say with completion of phase prelims. So we can push costs forward and use that as a deposit as such, but there isn't a deposit feature. Just to satisfy his.
No, can't out again. He said yellow now.
Got a very interested 4-year-old that wants to see what I'm doing. So, yeah, so not deposit feature there, but it is something pushing forward. It would be super handy. Right. Okay. I'll speak to you tomorrow, Rob. Like I say, hopefully, yes, got sent out the software again for you today, because you're moving machines. You've got a nice new machine to run on. Perfect. Roger Moore, I'll show you again. How to get your builder ID. So tools and options, and about EstimatorXpress. Okay, so you'll have builder ID listed on there. And okay, can the quantities on the quotation sheet be rounded up to make more sense? Right, now on that one, I'm going to delete the zeros on some items here. Okay, sorry about that. So remove my zeros. I will come to my quotation inquiry. Now, as you do say, it's going to be going to the nearest whole. Okay, so if you feel brave, you can always whack that down to 3, but this is going to be like, say, 3 1/4, 3 1/2 bulk bags. That one there, again, that's going to be 5 1/2 bags. Let's say sharp sand there, bulk bags. Almost 2. So where some of the figures go over, it counts towards some of the figures that just a little bit shy. There isn't a button within the software to round them up. It does presume that you might have materials left over for the next job, especially things like timbers, bricks, tiles, and such like that. There was a kind of a bit of a hacksy way to round stuff up, but it's not something that generally does what it does anymore, because the features for it have been supplanted for our estimating service stuff. What you can do is, when you export the report, you see all the games I play now. Once you have exported that, you can then round that using Excel to the nearest whole. I'll say round to the nearest whole, generally because you don't want to be rounding up some numbers to too much. And you're doing it on the order quantity, because the quantity required is the exact quantity you're going to need. I think it's always one of the little difficulties of, like, say, if you start doing some materials up as whole numbers, it can drive the cost up a good chunk. But it is something that's oft requested, and I do know that it's a feature within Excel, so could be implemented, but at the same time we are leaving Excel, so it might be something that can be done when we shift out, because the development time at the moment is gone into get out of Excel gear, as it were. Now the 2018 update's done, we're focusing on that one, which does actually give us a lot more options. There's a lot of things we've been limited on what we could do within the software. One of the examples being that when I opened up these reports, I did do the delete zeros, because every time you do something within a workbook, let's say I went into the Velux windows, copied that. There you go. Same location as before. As soon as I pop back to my reports, it's going to add the zeros back in for everything. So if I went to my price customer quote, hasn't this time. It's typical. It works when you don't want it to work. But it adds items in each time, so we have to keep having to do the remove zeros option. So that would be things that would be streamlined. But it also means as well that a lot of the fiddly or tweaky things that people request within the software we'll be able to implement, because it would just be a case of just doing a line of code instead of having to find a way to make it work within Excel. So that one definitely on the request list. I've kind of made a me and back here, saying requests. But good thing is all these questions are getting recorded, so I can go through tomorrow and add them to our database of stuff that has to be done. So basically prioritize between, say, would likes, must do's, priorities and such there. So I'll get them all on there. Okay, so any more questions? I keep the webinar rolling for a little bit longer. And so we've still got a healthy amount of people in here, so you all obviously aren't scared of this mug. Yeah, you just put a bit of tape over the screen. Hit the webcam. Well, actually, yeah, a bit feedback might be appreciated as well, because I thought I'd just do the webcam thing off my own back. Give it a chance. See how it goes. Next time I'll bring my smoking jacket and bubble pipe for that totally informal look. It'd be nice to have something other than water in a pint glass. Right, so questions. Usage questions. Any more suggestions? Things I can make the developers go, ooh, why didn't I think of that? Or that one again. So there has actually been quite a few recognisable names in the crowd. A few of you spoken to quite a few times. For support. Say, good to see you guys signing up to the webinars, seeing what's going on, and quite a few names as well that I haven't spoke to in a long time, or don't think I've actually spoken to before. So very much thank you to you guys for attending. Like I say, if I don't get to speak to you often, it's say you might have heard my voice quite often in the some of the training videos or how-to videos. But yeah, please make yourself known on the support line. You know, we like to have a conversation with our customers, get to know you. It's not until sometimes we've had a good natter on the phone that we find out some of the things that you really want from us and what you want to do in the software. So yeah, come say hello sometime. More questions. Perfect. So I knew if I started talking random stuff, you guys will ask me a question to shut me up. Now, these are a good way to get to know the software can do. As new to the software, do you do training day or afternoon at all? Now, the training, what we've done, we used to do training days where we would send some poor soul out of the office with suitcases of equipment and send them trekking across the UK to various locales. But due to, say, the want of training days, but also limited on where we can also go for the training days, because when you get a lot of customers all over the British Isles trying to get you guys to go to single locations or the nearest location, is unfair on you. So what we've started doing is a new training program. Now, very much like the webinar here, where you get to see me show the new features, explain how they work, cross my fingers that it all goes well because it's live, but also then answer your questions. The training webinars work in the same format. They go under the header the software skills course. Now, doing one of those, you won't be missing out anything that you wouldn't have got already in one of the live training days attending in person. In fact, you probably get a little bit more because the lessons are broken across 4 weeks. So whereas a training day, you would have a morning session with 2 parts of the software, then an afternoon session with 2 parts of the software, with a lunch in between. This time you can focus on, say, the price books as a webinar. Say up to about 8 people or so within a session with Olivia, who is a trained teacher. So she knows how to keep you unruly lot in line. And basically you sign up, you do the lesson, you go through, and you can ask questions as you go through, or you can take questions from the session and contact us on support. Those sessions, as they are currently, are also available on the support site. If you go to training, you'll see that they're actually listed under the software skills remote training. We've also added in and amended recently to do the training course as done with Quick Quote as well. So you also find that there is a software skills course for using PlansXpress and EstimatorXpress in conjunction. So that's a little bit on variation of what the PlansXpress training day was. We find that this is much more convenient for you guys because you've got the session. If you find that something happens on the day, at most you might miss one session, but you can catch the other 3, and you can catch up on the one session for a video or something. If you do find that you want that personal touch, someone to basically take you through, watch what you're doing, making sure you're doing it right, we do offer one-to-one, where we can send someone out to your offices, and they can then basically spend the day with you, going through a project or getting things set up. Okay, and if you are stuck on a project, but you feel it might just need a couple of hours of attention from some of us, you can book dedicated time with one of us, usually myself, to log into your machine and basically do the work alongside you. Okay, sometimes it just turns into me doing the work for you, but at the same time, hopefully you're learning something. Next question. What's the best way to find UBC, fascias, soffits, and etc.? Back to my summary. So I'm going to go to my workbooks tab. I'm going to go to renovation and demolition drop-down, and in here you will find guttering and fascia renovation, sloping roof, gutter and fascia renovation, flat roof. Now, most of the time, if people are just doing soffits and fascias on their own, it usually is as part of a renovation job. But you can still use it on its own. I haven't even opened this one up in my workbook yet. Love that recalc time though. Okay, so I have a little preview of that workbook there. Links of fascias to replace, but it could be new fascia on a new build. Barge boards and such there. Guttering. Now, if it is new, all you need to do is zero out time to strip gutter, barge walls and fascias, and 0 out your skips. And you're good to go. You can use it as a brand new workbook for new stuff if that's all that needs to be done on the roof. Okay, so hopefully that's answered your question there. So Workbooks tab, which some of you don't always click, you should use it more. Super convenient. Workbooks tab, renovation and demolition, and you'll find the gutter and fascia renovations in there. Brilliant. One moment. Right, okay, so next up, is it possible to change a resource across multiple workbooks in one go? Now, if that resource is spec linked, or if that workbook is spec linked, then that's a general yes. The key to knowing that is on your summary page, you will see on the column link to spec yes. If it doesn't say anything, you can take that as no. But if it is yes, so in the case of leany roof or brick and block cavity wall, now if you've got two different types of roof in there, or two different walls that use block, let's say, what we can do is we can go to the spec, and in said spec, make the change of that item. Now, I will give you the demonstration here of the walls. So as you'll see here, cavity wall specification and general walling specification. So what that is telling us is that while this is used for cavity wall, brick and block cavity wall, block cavity wall, stone and block cavity wall, these are items that are universal to anything that's got the cavity. So general walling. When it does refine to something such as the stone, like stone facing, stone cavity, those particular items will be listed under a smaller subsection of that. Okay, multi-leaf and such. So cavity block wall for the outer leaves, we've got there. But for stuff that's common like the inner leaf, insulation, brick ties and whatnot, we can, if we make the change in here, so block to blockwork. There we go, blocks above DPC less openings. There we go, insulator standard block. So if we was to change that one there, and change that one to just to say a solid, dense concrete block. This is purchased in meters square. There we go, so that's 1 for 1. Usage factor important there, how the blocks are purchased. If the blocks are purchased individually, so like say like a Travis block or something like that, then you'd want to be making sure that's 10 per meter square. If it's a Jewson block, then that would be purchased per meter square. It's one of the definitions, is one of the times that the material ordering is different on the same material type across different merchants. We've traditionally gone with the meter square ordering system, but it's just a case of times by 10. Once you've changed your resource, all you need to do then is hit apply spec, and that change will then apply to any of that linked workbooks that use that resource. If it's not a linked workbook, then you're just going to have to go in there and change it. Right, questions? Can you produce a workbook, etc., for battening out ceilings, i.e. screwing timber to concrete ceilings or lowering a ceiling in timber? Now, that's one I had asked to me years ago, and I scratched my head and went, what is the best way to go about doing this? And I just went suspended timber floor. It's probably the quickest way to get a costing of something of that sort, especially if there's any installation involved as well, because all you would do, if I crack one open now, so we've got suspended floor, we could use even some of the side void ones, exclude a couple of materials by default, but if I just use a suspended floor, right, typical suspended house floor, call that ceiling, because there are ceiling workbooks in there, but they are just, say, plastering and decorating. But what we can do with this one is we can take the resources in this. Now, it might be that we don't want the noggins in there, so we'll just zero that one out. We don't need the end bearings, because so we're going to zero that one out. But the length for the room, we can say it's going to be 4. Width of the room, we could be saying is going to be 3. And the spacing of the joists on those battens instead are going to be 4. No end straps required. 0 ceiling, 0 trimmers, 0 hangers, 0 boots. Plastered, yes. Decorated, yes. We could say insulation, yes, because there's going to be a bit of region of insulation in there. And overlap on the ceiling edge, 0. No, click finish. And then what we'd do, I'm going to do resources wizard for this one because it looks fancy and nice. Change the floor joists to something completely different. Now I'm just going to pick treated batten for this one. Okay. That's ordered per meter. Oh, it's still showing on my other merchants. I best pick one that's not. One that's actually hidden in the background. There we go. So swap my floor joists for the batten instead. And insulation. Picking out, say, change that to something else. Now, floorboards. Now, you can't be saying something is not required within the wizard. So we'll close that. What I'll do is I'll go to View Resources Output and just set the floorboards as not required. There we go. I can even set the fix the floorboarding as not required as well. The fixing the joists, I can up the time for that if we're allowing to screw into the concrete, and just make any other changes. So nailing to floorboards, we can swap down to a masonry fixing instead. So just change resource. Find just masonry primer. Oh, hang on. That's one of the things about doing things impromptu, knowing what to find. There you go. Grab a bag of ammo for fixings. That'll do us. There you go. And one bag does 2 meters square. Or let's say 3 meters square. And now I go with 2. Okay. So there we go. We've given that a cost. So that's how I would go about doing that one. If you wanted to kind of keep what you've done there, okay, for next time, you can use this and you can actually go save as template, change that to plastering or something like that, and workbook name timber plastered ceiling. And then once you've saved that, clicked OK, that'll get added into your list of workbooks. So next time you do got got a task of lowering a ceiling with timber or battening out a concrete ceiling, you can just pop that one in and go from there. If you're doing it on the one-off, then you can just come out here and just rename that one. There you go, and drop done. So it's a lot of times say, well, you might not have a direct workbook for that task you're going to use. There is most likely a workbook of a similar thing that can be, with a few tweaks, made to fit that purpose. Like I say, the suspended ceiling one, suspended floor one, does actually quite well for those ceiling tasks I find in the past. All right, next question. Is there a specific workbook for stripping a tiled roof? There is one for basically it asks you for the time you want to give it to strip a roof. It's part of the roof renovation workbook. Found there. So basically, you'd say roof structure is okay. You give it the size of the roof for what needs to be going on new. So felt, batten, tiles, and then it basically asks you how long it's going to take to strip. It's one of those demolition questions where you're not quite sure how long, except where the software can't dictate precisely because it does not know the condition of the existing roof. The battens could be fine or newer, in which case they're actually going to be an absolute pain in the neck to get off anyway, because a really well hammered down batten is a pig to get off. Or you could have trouble getting across the roof anyway because the battens are so rotten that as soon as you try moving across them, they fall off their nails and you end up stabbing yourself on the nail for the palm. I kind of speak for that from experience. So it does ask you. There's not a costed workbook for that one. If you did want to do something that's costed for, then that would be like you could use an area workbook as a cost per meter square calculation if you want to give someone a rate for stripping down a roof. But within the software itself, it's basically just it's going to ask you that question: how many hours you want to allocate towards that task. Okay, so that's my answer on that one. If you're not sure yourself, rod for my own back time here, but if you're ever on the phone with me, you can go, how long it takes to strip that one, tell me the condition of it. I'll give you a ballpark. There you go, that's a huge rod for me and back. But I can at least give you an indication of what to expect time-wise, depending on the condition of the roof, if not cost. Generally, it's so what kind of difficulties you may encounter. If you're doing roofing quite a lot yourself, then you may know of the trials and tribulations. But if it's not something you've normally tackled before, then yeah, there are certain things to look out for and what to account for. When you're stripping off roofs, it's one of those times like a lot of renovation works where it's like, oh, look what I found, this rafter's rotten. Or in my case, as some of the work I've done in the past, is, oh, look, this rafter's half burnt through. Incendiary bombs from World War II. And just felt battened over. So yeah, it wants to eyeball an eyeball on that one. So more questions. But thanks, guys, for the compliments. It's like pleasure doing this for you. I don't mind doing these webinars because once the formal presentation part of it's over, because that's always the worst bit. I think, hang on, got to remember what's in this now. But once it gets to the Q&A bit now, it actually can be quite fun. I like answering your questions. Yeah. So on which point, yeah. Any other questions? Otherwise, we can call it soon. It's coming up to 20 to 9, so yeah, we can call it that. Oh, actually got a question come from that. Yeah, I have just given myself a rod for my back. Yeah, well, say, yeah, yeah. Key thing there: take some pictures. And also, if you've got access to it, no matter what kind of access you got, never try and price a roof from standing on the ground. Many times have that gone horribly wrong when someone's priced one up, and it's not exactly as expected. Oh, thank you, Zachary. I'd like to show everyone the speedboat that my son has just made for me. Say hello, Zach. Say hello to the camera. Right, off you go. Go see Mummy.
You like it?
I do like it, thank you. Right, so, yeah, if there's no more questions, I shall let you all escape. Yeah, and yeah, thank you very much for attending. I appreciate the that. Yes, that thought has crossed my mind there, Richard. There is a pub around the corner. But yeah, no, thank you much for attending. Thank you much for sticking around. Thank you very much for your questions. I shall hopefully speak to you all at some point in the future. So please, you're always welcome to give us a call on the support line or just drop me an email, support@hbxl.co.uk. Like I say, I think I need to pop the PowerPoint up there. Look at that. Professional to the last. But importantly, we got you covered. Thank you very much, and good night.